This is the last day of our Holy Week journey. Jesus has risen, Resurrection Sunday. It was still early, that gray time of day just before the sun actually peaks over the horizon. The air was probably chilly as the women who had stayed by Jesus' side at the cross made their way back to the tomb. They were carrying heavy jars of spices they had spent the evening preparing, walking with that slow, numbing grief you feel when you're visiting a grave for the last time. They weren't expecting a miracle. They were just there to say a final, painful goodbye. But when they finally reached the garden, they stopped in their tracks because the massive stone that had been sealed so tightly against the entrance was already rolled away. You can almost imagine them holding their breath as they stepped into the cool, dark shade of the tomb. Their hearts must have skipped a beat when they saw the space was completely empty. There was no body, no smell of death, just an empty stone bench where Jesus had been laid. As they stood in the shadows, trying to make sense of the impossible, two men suddenly appeared beside them, wearing clothes that shone like lightning. The women were terrified and dropped to the ground, shielding their eyes, but the men asked a question that would honestly change the world forever. "Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He isn't here. He has risen." Then they added something so simple: "Remember what he told you." In that moment, everything started rushing back to them. They remembered how Jesus had sat with them and explained exactly what would happen, how he would be handed over, how he would be crucified, and how on the third day he would rise again. He had told them the plan all along, but standing there in the light of that empty tomb, the truth finally clicked. They didn't waste a second. They ran from the garden to tell the rest of the disciples, though at first the guys didn't believe a word of it. To them, it sounded like a wild tale, something that was just too good to be true. But Peter couldn't just sit there and wonder. He jumped up and ran to the garden himself, finding nothing but the empty linen cloths left behind. But the story didn't end with an empty room. Later that same day, Jesus began to show up. He walked alongside two followers on a dusty road to a village called Emmaus. They didn't recognize him at first. Their hearts were too heavy with sadness. But as they sat down for dinner and he broke the bread, their eyes were suddenly opened. They realized it was him. He wasn't a ghost or a memory. He was alive. He appeared again to the rest of the disciples while they were gathered in a locked room. They were startled and frightened, but Jesus just stood there among them and said, "Peace be with you." He showed them the scars in his hands and feet, and he even ate a piece of fish right there with them to show them he was truly, physically back. The stone was gone, the tomb was empty, and Jesus was walking among his friends again. What looked like a tragic ending was actually a perfect new beginning. What had been sealed shut by a heavy rock was now thrown wide open for the whole world to see. He is risen. As our Holy Week journey comes to a close, we realize that this isn't actually an ending at all. It's the start of something that will never fade away. This story comes from the Gospel of Luke, a careful account of these final days. These moments weren't written to be some distant legend from a book, but a living truth that we get to walk out every single day. If this journey through Holy Week has meant something to you, we'd love for you to like and subscribe so you can keep walking with us through the stories of Scripture here at the Cardinal and Dove. We are so glad you're here.